Jimmy, my man, longtime friend, partner. Thank you for coming on the recipe. This is kind of my baby here, so I'm all in. I've been doing about an episode a week for a few months, and then we took a little bit of break. So thank you for coming on. And I'll just be real brief because you asked me, but people that don't know, the recipe was created to just get those key ingredients on what makes the 1% of the 1% tick and execute at a high level. And obviously you're one of those people, and I'm thankful enough to be able to call you, and here we are. So if you don't mind, just tell me a little bit about, first of all, the DeCicco household name brand, the family, the athletes, and then of course your baby, Super Coffee.
Dude, what an honor. First of all, I'm a bad friend because I didn't even know this was going on.
That's okay.
But it's about to blow up. I think that's fair to say. Mm-hmm. Thank you for doing this. This is going to be a fun one. I don't know, man. We've known each other for probably the better part of 5 years. Started working out together in New York City. And so my brothers and I started Super Coffee 6 years ago, 7 years ago now, losing count. But we all played sports in college, competitive guys, and we wanted a drink that tasted good, was good for us, didn't have a lot of sugar, gave us energy, and that's how we came up with Super Coffee. And I think our background as athletes and the way we approach fitness or workouts or the gym or competition really allowed us to compete in a highly crowded category and a tough sort of go-to-market strategy. So. I'm grateful for the challenges we've had. We've grown a lot over the last 7 years, but it ain't easy.
And you're the oldest, right?
That's right.
Got it. And then, so what's the age groups here?
So I'm 30, 29, Jake's 29, Jordan's 27.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And out of the gate, how did those conversations go with being clear on what the roles were and the positions?
I think in the earliest days, because you don't know what the business requires, right? You're like, oh, we're going to sell coffee. You didn't know that there's operations and finance and accounting and sales and marketing and investor relations. You didn't know what the roles were. You just knew that you had to sell a lot of coffee. So we all kind of did the work. We made the product by hand. We took turns making deliveries. And that was a battle because deliveries suck. The worst part about making deliveries, you had to print out the invoices the night before. So if you had 10 stops, you're making 10 invoices on QuickBooks. You're printing it out. So some nights we'd rock, paper, scissors, shoot for who would do that. And then for the first year, we kind of did that, rotating on different roles. And then you kind of fell into your niche. Jake was better at sales than I was, so he did more selling. Jordan liked making the product and managing the supply chain, so he was the innovator and operator. I was better with investors, so I was out building the network. It kind of felt like your personalities lent you to your responsibilities within the company.
That's awesome. What's the lifeline right now of Super Coffee? How old is she?
We sold our first bottle in the fall of 2015. So that'll be 8 years this fall. But the first 2 or 3 years was really just the three of us driving around in a van, figuring it out. So I say 2018 was our true launch.
Sure. And I'm just as an entrepreneur and someone creating a brand, there's challenges every day, some small fires, some big fires. Would you say now being year 8, are you finding that there are more challenges than when you first started?
Oh, yeah.
Sure, it's all relative, but...
More money, more problems, right? And the bigger the problems get, I think you build up not a coping mechanism, but you handle the stress a lot better. Yeah. Our problems were so small in the early years, but I was so stressed out from all of them. It was oh my God, we don't have the right caps or the right labels for this 100-bottle run. And that was very stressful. So the stress was worse back then. But the problems are bigger. There's been times in the last couple of years, it's how am I going to make payroll next week? We got 100 mouths to feed, that's stress.
Yeah, big time.
But you deal with it, and you find solutions. I think as leaders, you're never stuck, right? You can't face a problem and be like, I got nothing. I got no moves available to me. You always have to find a move.
Sure.
So you figure out how to do that.
So I think it was maybe around 2020, maybe 2019, what was the record biggest year of sales for Super Coffee?
So every year we get a little bigger. So 22 was the biggest, but we went from 4 million in 2018 to 26 million in 2019. Yeah. That was the biggest jump percentage basis. And that was the real coming out party in 2019.
And as the CEO and the founder, how pivotal, how challenging is it during those times when you have to kind of set the terms, the valuation, and especially when I feel like all these companies were just throwing out these massive valuations. Did you have any like struggles with setting those? And
yeah, it's a good question, man. We've raised a lot of money over the years. I think over 150 million.
Yeah.
We raised $100 million Series C in 2021. And so a lot of people look to us. They're like, dude, can you help me raise money? Like, how'd you do it? What's the advice? I don't think there's any playbook to raising money. You know, and your questions about setting valuations, like the value of your company is whatever an investor is willing to pay for it, right? And there's ways to calculate that. You know, in our space, it's typically net sales multiples. In public markets, it's a multiple on EBITDA. When you're a growth startup, you don't really have a lot of EBITDA to value yourself off of. So I think it depends on who you're talking to from an investment perspective. One thing I've learned is the people who know the beverage industry the best are often the most strict on valuation because they know how hard it is and how difficult it is, and they're probably a bit jaded and a bit calloused. So historically, we've raised from people who are super strong investors and very well-respected names that don't have the nitty-gritty nuances in the beverage industry. The pros of that are you get a big valuation and you get a supportive investor who believes in your vision. The cons are you don't really have an operator to talk to of like, hey, how do we squeak out more gross margin from this co-packing relationship? You know?
Now you got to really execute on those sales.
Yeah.
Shark Tank several years ago, the three of you were on there. It was good. I saw the episode a few times. Have you ever ran into any of those guys later on with all the success you've had?
Yeah, dude, people ask us this all the time too. And so people are like, oh man, I bet those sharks are kicking themselves. Those sharks are just fine. You know, Mark Cuban's a freaking billionaire. Whether he invested in Super Coffee or not, he doesn't lose sleep overnight.
Yeah, no, they're fine.
Yeah, they're fine. So nobody's ever reached out. What's funny, the guest shark on our episode was a guy named Rohan Oza. Yeah. Rohan, he was the chief marketing officer at Vitamin Water, like really an iconic beverage marketer. So we're like, we want Rohan to invest. And it was his first episode ever of Shark Tank, like the one that we recorded. I didn't know that. We thought he had a little cold feet. Because he was excited. He was like, man, it tastes good. Your velocities are great. Like, I like where you guys are headed. And he passed on it. But we stay in touch with him just because we're in the same industry.
Sure.
And then another guest shark who wasn't on our episode is Alex Rodriguez. And he ended up investing in Super Coffee. We've built a really cool relationship over the last couple of years. And that's been awesome, right? Growing up a Yankee fan.
Oh, it's incredible.
Jay Ford, number 13 in Little League for A-Rod. So, I mean, Shark Tank opened up a lot of those opportunities.
That's really cool. You know, both of those guys, Rohan and Alex, I've had the pleasure of like training them both a few times.
Awesome.
And, you know, with me, we're in the gym. Guards are usually down. We're there to put some work in, but also it's an outlet, have a good time, you know, just talk shit a little bit. But then I've seen them both like turn that switch, the business hat on.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's intense. And you guys, I mean, this is when did that episode air?
2018, February.
Okay, so several years ago, you're a little bit younger. How were those nerves? I mean, I've been coming from athletics, you kind of like can just embrace those moments and get the job done. But how was it just like walking down that little path?
Yeah, dude. I mean, if we're going with the analogy of athletics, it felt like a national championship. You know, like you played hard all season, you deserved a spot there. You had like 3 or 4 weeks to prepare for the game. So we prepped for as much as we possibly could. You know, I asked all different investor groups if we could come in and pitch them as a mock presentation, and like they rehearsed as if they were the sharks. We did our lines. The first 90 seconds of the show are scripted, and it was me and my two brothers, so we each had a 30-second bit. We wrote the script, but you had to memorize it. So we knew that thing cold, because if I went out there and blacked out, like the words were still coming out of my mouth.
For sure.
And then afterwards, like the hump that we got over was, wow, like I'm intimidated by Mark Cuban. He's one of the most prolific entrepreneurs of our time. But that dude doesn't know more about Super Coffee than I do.
Correct.
Right? So like that kind of gave us the confidence we needed to stay in our lane. You know, like I wasn't going to go into Mark's lane and start talking about terms and valuations and investing. It's like, let me tell you about how we sell Super Coffee.
Dude, that's awesome. Okay, so here we are. We're about a few months into 2023. Where do you see Super Coffee going? I know you might have a few more products that are being launched this year.
Yeah, dude. So we really built our core product line in the grocery channel. It's a 12-ounce bottle of Super Coffee, sweetened with monk fruit, stevia. Great product, super differentiated from other bottled coffees. And we have a very loyal base of consumers who purchase it right now. That base is small, right? Like the monk fruit and stevia for the grocery store shopper, that's going after the female, sort of athletic, active, affluent, you know, like it's a very niche sort of shopper. So we're opening up our total addressable market this year. We're launching a 15-ounce can. We're calling it Super Coffee Extra. It's going to compete with like a Java Monster.
Very cool.
Amazing flavor. More for convenience channel than for grocery. So going after like a more blue collar male worker with that one. And then the third product to really open up our total market is Super Coffee multi-serve. So like a big bottle that you could keep in the fridge.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think the pandemic really accelerated this work from home trend, where people are sort of keeping their fridge stocked with snacks and goodies. They want to have a cold brew in the fridge that they can just pour in their cup all day.
Yeah.
So that's a big category for us.
Got it. And do you have a timeline you can speak on when it's coming out?
Yep. So multi-serve's out now in some grocery channels. The way our industry works is it's like once annual or twice annual resets. So like if you launch a product in January, you might not see it on the shelf until August, depending on when that grocery store takes it in.
Got it.
And then the 15-ounce can, that's coming out in June, launching in New York City and a couple convenience store chains.
Okay, sick. Are the rumors of like literally it's a dog fight to get on the shelves at like Whole Foods, are those true? Like you got to be scrappy. I've heard from someone, they said something like, oh, I was literally handing out iPhones and Whoop watches, to some of their people. It's just like, let me get in there.
Yeah. So
it's pretty scrappy.
Yeah, I think on the independent accounts, like think of the bodegas in New York City, right? That's scrappy because you could go in and say like, hey, that coffee you have on the shelf there, that's not selling very fast. I'll buy all 30 bottles off the shelf for you, and I'll give you free product of Super Coffee to fill that space. Like we've done that. Like
solid.
Imagine being the guy that sells in that other brand, and minutes later, the next brand comes in and just buys out your space. So like that's scrappy. There's not really any rules. What's hard about Whole Foods is every brand's trying to get in there. There's a limited number. It's like a bottleneck of category managers who make the decisions, and it's a limited time frame. Like I said, there's only 1 or 2 resets per year. So a lot of times Whole Foods will say, hey, this product's great. Love what you guys are working on. And then they'll get your hopes up, and then they'll go dark. And there's nothing you can do. It's not like the bodega where you can walk into a Whole Foods and start wheeling and dealing. All that's controlled at headquarters, which is here in Austin, Texas. And if that buyer doesn't answer, or if that reset's not for 12 months from now, you're not getting in.
Right. I think maybe it might have been 2 years ago now, and it could be still an issue today. But I remember our buddy Ryan was telling me about it's like such a shortage going on with plastic. Like, do you still struggle with that? Is that still an issue?
Sort of. So what's interesting about plastic in the supply chain crunch, remember we had that freeze in Austin a couple of years ago, 2021? Yeah. So that hit Houston too. And plastic is a byproduct of petroleum. Houston is the biggest petroleum oil refinery town in the country.
Oh, wow.
So with that freeze, all these petroleum facilities shut down. So there was no plastic after that. So I think prices went up, supply was down. There was a real bad issue with the can shortage. And that was mainly driven because when White Claw and Truly blew up in like 2019, all of the hard seltzer manufacturers sent it. They're like, this category is going to be huge. I need to buy all the cans. Well, the category didn't grow the way they thought it would.
Right.
They're sitting long on all this can inventory, and guys like us couldn't afford cans because there wasn't any. And now all that's kind of balanced back out.
Okay, cool. Speaking of storm, but maybe a more perfect storm, when did you move out to Austin?
Moved here in December of 2020.
Okay, got it. I feel like, and then so did our buddy Tom Deegan with Ladder. They moved out here around the same time, maybe a year or two before.
Yep, year before.
Yeah, and then now, last year, collective opening. I feel like anyone I talk to, and now I moved here July 2021.
Yep.
I mean, it's been a special, like, little movie just, watching and just being a part of it. Austin, the boom of it all. Like, are you super... are you all in on Austin? Are you staying for a while?
Yeah, man, I love it here, and it's cool. You humbly say watching, but I feel like you're building the movement. You're part of this thing, and for me, our lease was up in New York in 2020, and I was like, we're not going to renew in New York City.
Great spot, though, by the way.
It was awesome. Yeah, we had a great time there. But it's like, are we really going to try and renew in New York when everything's shut down? Remember they were building those little sheds outside to eat in on the sidewalks?
Yeah,
exactly. But Austin still had this energy to it, and this collaboration, this creativity. Whole Foods is based here. Weather's nice, good fitness scene. At the time, I was like 27 probably. I was like, man, why not? Why not move to Austin? Let's go down there. We were recruiting some executives, CFO. We were raising a round of funding. It's like we want to be in that mix of food and beverage or consumer packaged goods. So yeah, man, it's been awesome. Met the love of my life in Austin.
Yep.
Got a ranch and some cows and donkeys now. Started playing pickleball down here.
It's speaking of the ranch, Cedar Ranch, right?
Cedar Trunk Ranch.
Cedar
Yes,
Trunk
sir.
Ranch. Shout out to everything you guys are doing out there. I have a blast. If you do visit, come correct with carrots. Otherwise, that donkey will not be happy.
That's right. We
Yeah.
got 2 donkeys and they love their carrots.
I took a stroll one of those weekends where you let me kind of just crash and clear my head out there. And I had like a coffee in my hand, just going for a walk. And then I saw Murph and what's the other donkey's name?
Poncho.
And then I guess normally they're greeted with like treats.
That's right.
I didn't have any treats.
Yeah.
So like I'd walk, they'd sprint down to me and then stop. And then that was a interesting adrenaline rush for about 5 minutes. But it's so awesome. And your business partner, Devin, right?
Yep.
My best pal. That's my buddy. Devin's my guy.
Dev, he's the real deal.
Talk to me about like that relationship. You guys have been friends now for how long?
About the same time as I knew you, probably 4 or 5 years. Met him in New York in 2017, 2018.
Okay.
Coming up, same age. You know, he was doing his thing at Performix at the time. He was involved in Don't Be a Pig.
Yep.
That's how we got connected, sort of through mutual investors.
Yep.
And in typical Devin fashion, he was like, "Dude, come to Performix. I'll put you through a workout." And like, if you were to say that to me, like, it's going to be a casual workout. We're going to get our work in, but we're going to meet. We're going to talk business.
Yeah.
Devin's only goal that workout was to make me throw up.
Right.
And he succeeded. He was like, we were doing fucking bear crawls on the treadmill, pulling sleds on the turf, doing burpees. And he was like, again. And I'm in the bathroom throwing up. I'm like, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Dev. And turns out, that type of competitive nature and push really drew us both together.
Yeah, that's him in a formula bottled up.
Yeah.
Like that's him.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. And Allison, how's that going?
Awesome, man. Yeah, Allison, her and I met down here in 2021. We did this triathlon on Memorial Day, right in Town Lake. It's a sprint tri, so like a half-mile swim, a 12-mile bike, 3-mile run. And she beat me. She beat me by a minute. And I was like, dang, I gotta meet this girl.
Yeah.
And we've been hanging out every day since.
Dude, that's so great because you see, opposites attract, but then something about just when your lifestyles meet, and there's an understanding of like, okay, fitness is a non-negotiable for Jimmy. It's a non-negotiable for Allison. Like, you guys don't like attack each other over it or just like create friction. You do it together and then you compete. So that's like awesome.
Dude, it's so cool. And I'll say that like in New York, you kind of try and fit into this mold that you expect. You think that people have an expectation of who you are, or like you assume what others think. And like I was trying to be a CEO and I was wearing button-down shirts to meetings and I was going to workouts that other people were going to. And then in Austin, I was like, I'm going to do what I want to do, right? I want to do triathlons. I want to get a bicycle. Like I want to lift weights. Like, and I think when you authentically do the things that you're interested in, you're going to attract the people who share those same interests and values. So it's been awesome, man. We moved in together probably 6 months ago now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to her. She's dope. And the families, the in-laws, they like each other?
Oh, yeah. So our parents haven't met yet, but her parents are staying with us right now in Austin this weekend. So we're showing them a good time.
Okay.
They'll meet the brothers this week.
Got it.
But yeah, it's good, man.
Speaking of family, you guys have been doing a lot more marketing, like with Mama.
Yeah.
Right? So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, dude, so it's a family business, right? I'm blessed to do this with my brothers every day. Mom and dad play a big role in the business. You know, they've always been our biggest fans and never missed a game when we were kids. And they see the business as a game, you know, so they're supporting us, they're cheering for us, they're coming out to events and things. And when we think about Super Coffee and the brand, like who drinks Super Coffee? People who want to make their moms proud. Whether it's you sort of breaking records in business, you know, raising your son, doing whatever you do, doing it right, doing it with all the effort you can do to make your mom proud.
Yeah.
So like we've kind of spun that to like, we started Super Coffee to make our mom proud, you know, and it's been fun pulling her in.
It's so funny. Early days when I was connecting with you, getting involved with Super Coffee, when someone asked me like what makes it like super, that's how I would have to describe it. It would be like, well, like, sure, like the label, you can read it, why it's good and why it's, you know, a healthier option and, you know, and to get you going. But then I have to tell them like, well, here's what Jimmy's like and his family and that's in the bottle. Like, you know, and that's what you're going to, you know, hopefully get out of that is like momentum to go and crush it. You know,
I like that. Momentum in a bottle, baby.
That's it.
It's tough. I appreciate you saying that. And for those who get to know us, they're like, oh, it makes so much sense now that you created Super Coffee, right? High energy guys, positive energy, the whole deal. It's not scalable, right? Like Jake Jordan and I can't know everybody. Anybody who drinks Super Coffee doesn't know the three of us, you know? So I think we're trying to figure out how to brand the product and the package so it's more of a community rather than just a transaction on the shelf.
Yeah. I hear you. Do you think you'll ever like go retail and have your own coffee shop?
It's a good call. I mean, we're at a major disadvantage because there's tens of thousands of Starbucks nationwide. You know, there's thousands of Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
We're the only bottled coffee that I can think of that doesn't have a retail play. And like when you see that orange bottle of Dunkin' Donuts sitting on a shelf in your local grocery store, you smell the donuts in the cafe, right? Like there's this brain connection that we don't have because we don't own cafes. So I think maybe we'll do some experiential, some pop-ups, you know, like a Soho pop-up or like a pop-up here on South Congress just to get people in and interacting with the brand. But I don't think we'll go the cafe route. Yeah,
that makes the most sense. And with consumer, whatever it is, you want to keep the margins as clean as possible because it's very hard and it's challenging, kind of pay to play constantly.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So obviously we're in Collective, right?
Oh, yeah.
Jay Hills, Max, Devin are the co-founders. I moved out here. I was the first coach to come on board. I met Jeremy through a coaching summit a few years ago, and we hit it off. You've been, again, in the weight room, gyms all your life. Like, tell me about your experience when you're in here.
Yeah, dude. I think when I think of Collective, I think of a performance center. I think of a high-end gym. You know, I think of athletes who have goals and are coming here for very intentional reasons, right? Jeremy's known for coaching some of the best athletes in the world, NFL players, you know, NBA, basketball, the whole deal. And it's cool because you come in here and you see those guys working out and it pushes you to be your best. But Collective is truly the first social performance center, right? It's a place where you host panels, you meet coaches, you meet other folks who are building and growing and on a path. And I think being in that community, they say surround yourself with people who live the lifestyle you want to live, right? And I think Collective has that. But both Collective and Austin, I think Collective harvests the best of Austin when it's like people who can team up and it's like a 1 + 1 = 3. Right. You know, like let's help each other get to that next level.
When's the next time you're coming in here?
Man, I got to get in here soon. I like I saw Dr. Sneed last week at Collective North. He's helping me with I got some plantar fasciitis from all this freaking running. So that's been good. So that's the other piece is like, this isn't just a gym. I do my physical therapy at Collective too.
Yeah, it's awesome. What do you think of Sam Sneed, like in just his ability, like his knowledge? Because, you know, both of us, we were fortunate with Dr. Keith Pine in New York.
Yeah.
Shout out to him wherever he is. He's like a wizard.
Animal.
Yeah.
Very similar vibes. I think when I think of a chiropractor, I think of somebody who's like deep breath in, break your neck.
Right.
And when I think of Sam, he's like playing with my toes, hitting me with a freaking the dry needling and spots in my calf. Like he does nothing about adjustments or cracking my back. He's like, here's where the tension is. Like the tension in your calf is causing the issues in your heel. Yeah. Let's address that.
For sure.
And it's amazing, right? He's not taking x-rays or CAT scans. He kind of like looks at you, sizes you up, sees where you're off balance, sees where things are sticking, and then he addresses that. So it's to me, it's so much more than a chiropractor.
100%. Yeah, I'm fortunate that I can just like, if they're free, just knock on the door and go in there, or just if, you know, I like to think I'm pretty good at what I do, but you know, sometimes 4 hands are better than 2, 4 eyes are better than 2. So if I can grab them, hey, you know, Jimmy, check this out. Look at this movement. Look at this pattern. And it's great that we are able to just team up, you know, so close. So very fortunate there. And I know at the going back to the ranch, you guys have completely adopted the contrast. So yeah, like 6 cold tubs, right? Big sauna. How are you trying to get in there every day?
I try to. You know, I'm not up at the ranch every day, probably once a week. But I got the cold tub at the place. Devin's been big into the red light therapy lately. You know, it's great for cellular recovery. Yeah. The contrast has been good. People ask like, why do you do? What are the benefits of cold tub and hot tub and sauna? Like, one, it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But two, I think when you get in that thing first thing in the morning for 2 minutes and it spikes your cortisol and it takes your breath away, like there's nothing better. Like that's better than super coffee. Like I'm marketing against my own brand here, but if you have the courage to get in 39-degree water to start your day, it's going to be a damn good day.
Yeah. And do you try to people, that are viewing and just are big advocates for like health and wellness and fitness, they're constantly listening to see like, okay, what's the formula? Do I have this when I wake up first? Do I have coffee, then jump in the cold plunge? Do I wait? Like typically, like what are your thoughts on that? Like if you had your perfect little morning and routine, what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because everybody cites Andrew Huberman now, right? Including me. And I think his big thing is start your day with a cold plunge first thing, or cold water. If you don't have a plunge, get in the cold shower. That gets your cortisol levels to a point that like kind of wakes you up fully from that sleep mode. And he also says, don't do caffeine within the first 90 minutes upon waking, because that's like an artificial stimulant when like it works against your body's natural processes. So that I would say cold plunge, workout, cold plunge, whatever order you have it, and then coffee within the first hour or two of your day.
Nice.
Yeah.
So typically your days right now, let's just say you have that perfect morning, you do that. Wait till you have kids, you adjust. All this stuff that everyone's talking about. Yes, when you have kids, you got to adjust it a little bit.
Yep.
That's a little hard to master unless you have like a whole staff.
Right.
Then it gets easier. But okay, you have that morning, and then, your work environment at HQ at Super Coffee is just awesome. People are heads down, but like when you think of a work in an office, people are heads down and they're like grinding. But most of you guys are doing that, but there's some smiling going on too. Like there's a positive atmosphere. What's it like right now when you're at HQ?
Yeah, man. I think one, it's hard because we're 100 full-time people and mostly remote, so we're only 10 to 15 people out at HQ every day.
Right.
And it's bright, we got a pickleball court, we got hoops, we got music playing, and we want it to be fun. And we want it to be collaborative. So we got an open desk layout downstairs. That's where I've been posting up lately. And it's just easy to say like, yo, Eric, can you follow up with this? Like if I'm over your shoulder, it's easy for me to say that. And for you to say, Jim, what do you think about this? Versus somebody who's based up in New York City, getting on the phone, it's just a different environment. So I really, really value the in-office experience. Like you and I are 30 years old, but we're old school, man. We're like 1990s freaking mentality. And I just heard this story the other day of David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, talking about like the work from home environment. He had a lunch meeting out in the Hamptons maybe last summer, and real meeting, CEO to CEO. He's out there getting a deal done. And this girl comes up to him and says, Mr. Solomon, my friends and I are at a table over there. We took the day off. We work for you at Goldman Sachs. We came out to the Hamptons for the weekend to party. And I just wanted to introduce myself. And he was so mad. He was like, my offices are empty during the week and the bars are full on the weekends. So I think there's just this tough thing that CEOs and leaders face today of productivity of the workforce. And I'm certainly not immune to that at Super Coffee. I think if you set high goals, you can't worry about like people can't take too much time off and still hit those goals.
For sure. Just being around, I've been fortunate to work with so many really cool people, and like some are, much older in their 50s and 60s, and there is that mentality of like the intern does not speak to me,
right.
Or there's layers for them to get to me. And then there's some that it's like, our CEO Dev, great dude, we'll walk by and maybe it's like one of the coaches, have a meaningful conversation. Or even me, like we had this guy unfortunately had to leave, Jeff, awesome dude. He wants to pursue acting, and he'll probably crush it. I wish I could be an actor. And one night I was here late. I didn't have my son that night and I was kind of tired. I was going to go to neighborhood sushi. And I was like, hey, when was the last time you had sushi? He was like, oh, a little while. So I took him, And it's just like connecting. And I feel like if you have that disconnect in the workforce in the workspace, it just builds and it's just the tension and it's hard to come back for that. I want it to be like high expectations, high goals, but also keep it fluid, keep it transparent, and, let's remind one another that we're humans here,
Dude, totally. And the beauty of that story that you just told is like, that only happened because you both were in the same space, right? It wasn't, you weren't going to leave and then call him and be like, hey man, I don't know what you're doing right now. You want to meet me for sushi?
Exactly.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, 100%. And thankfully and hopefully we continue on this path where everyone's just wanting to get out there.
Yeah.
You know, and then if they're not, drink the canned beverage that you're about to launch and do it from home. Before I leave you, if you can, you know, recipe, ingredients, not for super coffee, but like ingredients like Jimmy DeCicco, like what does that look like?
Man, it's simple stuff. It's just not easy stuff. I think 8 hours of sleep every night, you know, try and prioritize that. If you're waking up at 5:30, that means you got to be in bed by 9 p.m., you know? So I think sleep, first and foremost, sleep, water and electrolytes. I've been doing a lot of electrolytes lately. Element is a great one. Sodium, potassium, magnesium. I try to avoid carbs and bread, you know, like I'll eat rice and sweet potatoes and stuff, but avoid added sugar. No coffee after 12 p.m. You know, again, coming at myself with super coffee. It's like, I said this to Jake the other day, my brother, and he was like, Jim, you don't want me to drink coffee for the first 90 minutes and you don't want me to drink coffee after 12 p.m. Like, when am I supposed to drink my products?
Right. We only got 4 hours to make my, yeah, I get it.
So yeah, man, it's sleep, food, exercise. Allison and I we got a 10,000 step challenge this month, every day, 10,000 steps. And like, if you go for a 6 mile run, you're getting that. That's easy.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're at your desk all day and you don't have a run that day, you might get home and be at 2,000 steps. And that tests who you are as a human. You're like, it's 6 p.m. I'm freaking exhausted. I'm at 2,000 steps. What am I going to do to get 8,000 steps? The last week we got home, we get into bed, 9 p.m. We were at like 7,500 steps. I was like, let's just go to bed. She was like, put your fucking shoes on. We're going to walk around the park.
What a legend.
Damn it.
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty because, you know, and I've spoken about this before. We're fortunate, like Andrew Huberman, he'll come in here sometimes. Great guy, super friendly. Our buddy Brian Mazza, you know, you name them, like the people that everyone's like scrolling and like, oh man, I aspire to be like this. They're dragging their ass up at 5 a.m. too. They don't want to get in the cold plunge either, you know, like,
totally.
So I appreciate the honesty because a lot of times people can, you know, the person at home or at their desk or, you know, waiting to pick up their kids at daycare, whatever it is, you know, they can kind of feel like, oh, this is unattainable.
Right.
But we all struggle with it, you know, and it's just get your shoes on. Like I have to, like you have to. We're going around the block.
Yep.
All right, my man. Well, I appreciate you. And let's get a workout in soon. And I'll see you in New York.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Eric, thanks, bro.
Yes, sir. Thanks, brother.